Unexpected inheritance. The incessant beeping of his alarm clock dragged Jack Harris from the comforting embrace of sleep. He groaned, fumbling blindly for the snooze button before remembering he couldn't afford to be late. Not again. With a sigh that seemed to come from the depths of his very soul, Jack hauled himself out of bed and shuffled towards the bathroom of his tiny apartment. As he stared at his reflection in the mirror, disheveled brown hair, tired blue eyes, and a 5 o'clock shadow that was well on its way to becoming a full beard, Jack couldn't help but wonder how he'd ended up here. He graduated top of his class in engineering, brimming with ideas that he was sure would change the world. But 5 years later, he was stuck in a dead-end job at a failing tech startup, barely making ends meet. "Happy birthday to me," he muttered sarcastically, splashing cold water on his face in a futile attempt to wake up properly. 30 years old today, and what did he have to show for it? A mountain of student debt, an apartment he could barely afford, and a job he was pretty sure wouldn't exist in another month. As Jack finished getting ready and headed out the door, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The air felt charged, almost electric, and the hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. He shook his head, chalking it up to lack of sleep and too much cheap coffee. It wasn't until he reached the bus stop that Jack realized what was wrong. The street was deserted. No cars, no pedestrians, not even the stray cats that usually prowled the neighborhood. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the low hum of something. Jack turned slowly, his heart pounding in his chest, and found himself face to face with a shimmering, translucent sphere of energy hovering at eye level. Within the sphere was an object that defied description, a twisted, metallic shape that seemed to shift and change even as he looked at it. "What the hell?" Jack breathed, reaching out tentatively towards the sphere. As his fingers brushed its surface, a jolt of energy coursed through his body. The world around him faded away, replaced by a cascade of images and sensations that threatened to overwhelm his senses. He saw vast cities of crystal and light, technology beyond his wildest dreams, and beings of such otherworldly beauty that his mind struggled to comprehend them. And through it all, a voice spoke directly into his mind, ancient and powerful yet tinged with warmth. Jack Harris of Earth, last scion of the House of Zarquin, heir to the legacy of the Starborn, your inheritance awaits. As quickly as it had begun, the vision ended. Jack found himself back on the empty street, the strange sphere and its contents now resting in his palm. He stared at it, his mind reeling, trying to process what he'd just experienced. "This can't be real," he muttered, pinching himself hard. The sharp pain and the weight of the object in his hand confirmed that this was no dream. Whatever was happening, it was all too real. A soft chime emanated from the object, and a holographic display sprang to life above it. Alien characters sprawled across the projection before resolving into English text. "Greetings, heir of Zarquin. Your presence is required on Elysium Prime to claim your birthright. Transport will arrive at these coordinates in 24 Earth hours. Prepare yourself." Jack read the message 3 times, his mind struggling to accept the implications. Elysium Prime. Birthright? He was just a normal guy from Earth, wasn't he? But as he turned the alien artifact over in his hands, feeling the thrum of power within it, he knew that his life would never be the same. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of frantic preparation and desperate attempts to understand what was happening to him. Jack called in sick to work, knowing he might never return. He packed a bag with essentials, not sure what he'd need on an alien world, and he spent hours scouring the internet for any information on the House of Zarquin or Elysium Prime, coming up empty-handed each time. As the deadline approached, Jack found himself standing in the middle of his apartment, surrounded by the meager trappings of his life on Earth. The alien artifact pulsed gently in his hand, a constant reminder of the choice that lay before him: stay and continue his mundane existence, always wondering what might have been. Or go, stepping into the unknown, embracing a destiny he couldn't begin to comprehend. In the end, it wasn't much of a choice at all. Exactly 24 hours after receiving the message, Jack stood in the empty lot behind his apartment building, his packed bag at his feet. The air began to shimmer and distort, a low hum filling the air. Jack's heart raced as a sleek, silver craft seemingly materialized out of thin air, hovering silently before him. A hatch opened in its side, revealing a brightly lit interior. Jack took a deep breath, picked up his bag, and stepped forward. As he crossed the threshold into the ship, he felt a tingling sensation wash over him, as if he were passing through an invisible barrier. Inside, the ship was a marvel of technology beyond anything Jack had ever seen. Smooth, organic curves blended seamlessly with pulsing lights and holographic displays. At the center of the cabin stood a tall, willowy figure that was unmistakably alien. The being had iridescent, silvery skin that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. Its large, almond-shaped eyes were a deep, mesmerizing purple, and atop its head was a crown of delicate, feather-like appendages that shifted and swayed with each movement. "Welcome, Jack Harris," the alien said, its voice melodious and androgynous. "I am Sandra, emissary of the Starborn Conclave. We have much to discuss during our journey." As the hatch closed behind him and the ship hummed to life, Jack felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "I have so many questions," he began, but Sandra held up a slender hand to stop him. "All will be revealed in time, young hare. For now, you must rest and prepare yourself. The claiming of your inheritance will require all of your strength and courage." Jack nodded, allowing Sandra to guide him to a reclined seat that seemed to mold itself to his body. As he settled in, he felt a wave of calm wash over him, his eyelids growing heavy. "Sleep now, Jack Harris," Sandra's voice came from somewhere far away. "When you wake, your new life will begin." As Jack drifted off to sleep, the ship slipped silently into the depths of space, carrying him towards a destiny he could never have imagined. The last thought that flitted through his mind before unconsciousness claimed him was a mix of excitement and trepidation. What the hell have I gotten myself into? Jack's dreams were a kaleidoscope of alien vistas and strange technologies, punctuated by flashes of a face he couldn't quite make out, a woman, he thought, with eyes that seemed to hold the secrets of the universe. When he finally awoke, he found himself in a room that defied earthly architecture, with walls that seemed to breathe and a ceiling that shimmered like the surface of a calm lake. "You're awake," Zandra's voice came from somewhere behind him. Jack sat up, realizing he was on a bed that felt like a cloud-given form. "We have arrived at Elysium Prime. It's time for you to meet your bondmate and claim your inheritance." As Jack followed Sandra through corridors that seemed to shift and change with each step, he tried to wrap his mind around everything that had happened. In the span of a day, he'd gone from a struggling engineer on Earth to the heir of an alien legacy on a distant world. They emerged onto a balcony overlooking a city that took Jack's breath away. Towering spires of crystal and light stretched towards the sky, while vehicles that looked like liquid metal darted between them. The sky itself was awash in colors Jack had never seen before, painting the alien world in hues that defied description. "Welcome to Elysium Prime, capital world of the Starborn Conclave," Sandra said, a note of pride in their voice. "And there," they pointed to a figure approaching them, "is your bondmate, Zora of House Zaraquin." Jack turned, his heart pounding, to face the woman who would shape his destiny. As their eyes met for the first time, he knew that his life would never be the same again. Journey to a new world. Jack's breath caught in his throat as he laid eyes on Zara for the first time. She was, without a doubt, the most beautiful being he had ever seen. Her skin was a soft lavender hue that seemed to glow from within, and her hair, if it could be called that, was a cascade of shimmering, iridescent tendrils that floated around her head as if suspended in water. But it was her eyes that truly captured him, deep pools of swirling silver that seemed to hold galaxies within their depths. As Zara approached, Jack felt a strange sensation in his chest, a warmth that spread through his body like liquid starlight. He realized with a start that this must be the bond Sandra had mentioned. "Greetings, Jack Harris of Earth," Zara said, her voice a melody that seemed to resonate in his very bones. "I am Zara, last daughter of House Zarquin, and your bondmate." Jack opened his mouth to respond, but found himself at a loss for words. How does one greet an alien princess they're suddenly bonded to? He settled for an awkward wave and a stammered, "Hi, nice to meet you." A flicker of amusement passed through Zara's eyes, and Jack felt an echo of it through their newfound connection. "The bond is already forming," she observed. "You feel it, don't you?" Jack nodded, still struggling to find his voice. "It's intense," he managed. "I've never felt anything like it." Sandra stepped forward, the feather-like crown rippling with what Jack was beginning to recognize as excitement. "The bond between you is the key to your inheritance and to the future of the Starborn Conclave. But there is much you must learn before you can truly claim your birthright." As if on cue, a low rumble shook the balcony beneath their feet. In the distance, a massive structure began to rise from the heart of the city, a towering spire of crystalline material that seemed to capture and amplify the alien sunlight. "The Nexus," Zara breathed, a mix of awe and trepidation in her voice. "It awakens for the first time in millennia." Jack looked between Zara and Sandra, confusion evident on his face. "The Nexus? What is it? And what does it have to do with me?" Sandra's expression grew solemn. "The Nexus is the heart of Starborn power, young hare. It is the source of our greatest achievements and our most terrible mistakes, and now it calls to you." Before Jack could ask any more questions, Zara took his hand. The moment their skin touched, a jolt of energy passed between them, and Jack gasped as a flood of images and emotions washed over him. He saw flashes of Zara's life, her childhood on Elysium Prime, her years of training and preparation for a destiny she never fully understood, and the weight of responsibility that had been placed on her shoulders. "I'm sorry," Zara said softly, gently breaking the connection. "The bond, it can be overwhelming at first, but it will help us navigate what's to come." Jack nodded, his mind reeling from the brief glimpse into Zara's world. "So, what happens now?" he asked, looking between his alien bondmate and the enigmatic Sandra. "Now," Sandra said, gesturing towards a sleek vehicle that had appeared silently beside the balcony, "we prepare you for your role as heir to House Zarquin. The Nexus awaits, but you must be ready to face its trials." As they boarded the vehicle, a sort of flying car that moved with impossible grace through the alien cityscape, Jack's mind raced with questions. "Can someone please explain what's going on?" he asked, a hint of frustration creeping into his voice. "Yesterday I was just a normal guy on Earth, and now I'm bonded to an alien princess and inheriting some kind of cosmic power source." Zara placed a comforting hand on his arm, and Jack felt a wave of calm wash over him through their bond. "I know it's overwhelming," she said. "Believe me, I've had my whole life to prepare for this, and I still feel unprepared, but I'll do my best to explain." As their vehicle wove through the gleaming spires of Elysium Prime, Zara began to tell Jack the history of the Starborn Conclave and House Zarquin. Thousands of years ago, the Starborn had been the most advanced civilization in the known galaxy, masters of technology so advanced it bordered on magic. They had brought peace and prosperity to countless worlds, uplifting younger species and sharing their knowledge. But with great power came great temptation. A faction within the Starborn, led by House Zarquin, believed that they had a responsibility to guide the destiny of the galaxy more directly. They created the Nexus, a device of unimaginable power that could reshape reality itself. The Nexus was meant to be a tool for good, Zara explained, her eyes distant as she recounted her people's history. But its power proved too great, too tempting. It nearly tore our civilization apart. In the end, the Starborn had sealed away the Nexus, binding its power to the bloodline of House Zarquin. For generations, the house had stood as guardians, ensuring that the power of the Nexus would never again be misused. But our numbers dwindled, Zara continued, a note of sadness in her voice. Until only my parents remained. They knew they needed to ensure the continuation of our line, to maintain the seal on the Nexus. So they reached out. Jack's eyes widened as understanding dawned. To Earth? To my parents? Zara nodded. Your father was chosen for his brilliant mind and kind heart. A genetic sample was taken, combined with starborn DNA, and you were conceived. You are the first human starborn hybrid, Jack, the future of both our peoples. Jack sat back, his mind struggling to process this revelation. He was part alien. It seemed impossible, and yet it explained so much. The ideas that had always come so easily to him, the sense that he never quite fit in on Earth. So what happens now? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Sandra, who had been silently piloting their vehicle, spoke up. Now, young hare, you begin your training. The power within you is great, but untamed. You must learn to control it, to channel it. Only then can you truly claim your inheritance and take your place as guardian of the Nexus. As if in response to Xandra's words, the vehicle began to descend towards a massive complex at the base of the now fully risen Nexus spire. The building was a marvel of alien architecture, all sweeping curves and shimmering surfaces that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Welcome to the Academy of the Starborn, Zara said, a mix of excitement and apprehension in her voice. This is where we'll train, where we'll learn to harness the power of our bond and prepare for the trials ahead. As they disembarked from the vehicle, Jack felt a tremor run through the ground beneath his feet. He looked up at the towering spire of the Nexus, its crystalline surface pulsing with an inner light that seemed to call to him. I can feel it, he murmured, almost to himself. It's like it's alive, waiting. Zara squeezed his hand, and Jack felt a surge of strength flow through their bond. It is alive, in a way, she said, and it's been waiting for you, Jack, for us. We're the key to unlocking its power and the responsibility that comes with it. As they walked towards the entrance of the academy, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he was stepping into a new chapter of his life, one filled with wonders beyond imagination, but also dangers he could scarcely comprehend. He glanced at Zara, seeing the determination in her alien eyes, and made a silent vow to himself. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever trials the Nexus might throw at them, he would face them, not just for himself or for Zara, but for the future of two civilizations that now rested on their shoulders. The doors of the academy slid open silently, revealing a vast atrium filled with holographic displays and alien technology that made Jack's engineer's heart skip a beat. As they stepped inside, Sandra turned to face them, their expressions solemn. Your training begins now, heirs of Zarquin, the alien said. The fate of galaxies hangs in the balance. Are you ready? Jack looked at Zara, feeling the strength of their bond flowing between them. He took a deep breath, squared his shoulders, and nodded. We're ready, he said, surprised at his own confidence. Whatever it takes, we'll face it together. As the doors closed behind them, sealing them into this new world of wonders and challenges, Jack couldn't help but feel a thrill of excitement. His old life on Earth seemed a distant memory now. Here, among the stars, he had found his true destiny. The real adventure, he realized, was only just beginning. Uncovering ancient secrets. The days that followed Jack's arrival on Elysium Prime were a whirlwind of activity and information. The Academy of the Starborn proved to be a place of wonders beyond his wildest imagination, filled with technology that made even his engineer's mind reel with possibilities. Each morning, Jack and Zara would wake in their separate quarters, their bond humming with shared anticipation for the day ahead. They would meet in the Academy's vast central atrium, a space that seemed to shift and change daily, adapting to the needs of its inhabitants. Today, as Jack entered the atrium, he found it transformed into a replica of an ancient starborn library. Holographic shelves stretched as far as the eye could see, filled with shimmering data crystals that contained the accumulated knowledge of millennia. Good morning, Jack. Zara's melodic voice called out. She was already there, her iridescent hair shimmering in the soft light, ready for another day of mind-bending revelations. Jack couldn't help but smile. Despite the weight of their shared destiny, Zara's presence always brought a sense of calm and purpose. "As ready as I'll ever be," he replied, reaching out to take her hand. As their fingers intertwined, Jack felt the now familiar rush of their bond activating. It was becoming easier to control, to channel the flow of thoughts and emotions between them. He sent a wave of affection through the connection, feeling Zara's response like a warm glow in his chest. "Today's lesson is going to be intense," Zara said, a hint of apprehension in her voice. "Sandra says we're ready to delve deeper into the true nature of the Nexus." As if summoned by Zara's words, Sandra appeared before them, their forms shimmering into existence like a mirage solidifying. "Greetings, young hairs," the alien said, their feather-like crown rippling with what Jack now recognized as a mix of excitement and concern. "Today, we will explore the heart of your inheritance. Are you prepared?" Jack and Zara exchanged a glance, their bond thrumming with shared determination. "We're ready," they said in unison. Sandra nodded, then gestured with a slender hand. The library around them shimmered and faded, replaced by a vast, dark space filled with pinpricks of light. Jack gasped as he realized they were standing in a perfect representation of the galaxy. "The Nexus," Sandra began, their voice echoing in the vastness, "is more than just a source of power. It is a connection point, a place where the fabric of reality itself grows thin." As they spoke, the galactic map zoomed in, focusing on a particular region of space. A pulsing point of light appeared, growing brighter and more intense. "This is Elysium Prime," Zara said softly, her eyes wide with wonder. "I've never seen it like this before." The view zoomed in further, and Jack felt a jolt of recognition as the familiar spire of the Nexus came into view. But there was something different about it now. Streams of energy flowed in and out of the spire, connecting it to distant points of light scattered throughout the galaxy. "The Nexus is a nexus in the truest sense of the word," Sandra continued. "It connects to similar points throughout the galaxy, creating a network of immense power and possibility." Jack's mind raced with the implications. "So it's not just about Elysium Prime," he said slowly. "The Nexus affects the entire galaxy." Sandra nodded, their expression grave. "More than that, Jack Harris. In the wrong hands, the Nexus could reshape the very nature of reality itself." The gravity of their responsibility hit Jack like a physical force. He felt Zara's hand tighten in his, their bond pulsing with shared anxiety and resolve. "But why us?" Jack asked, voicing the question that had been nagging at him since his arrival. "Why a human and a starborn?" Sandra waved their hand, and the galactic map shifted once more. This time it showed two distinct energy signatures, one a cool blue, the other a warm gold. "The starborn have long been custodians of the Nexus," Sandra explained. "But our power alone is no longer enough to control it. The energy of the Nexus has been growing, evolving. It needs balance." The two energy signatures in the map began to swirl together, forming a brilliant green where they merged. "Humanity, young and vibrant, possesses a unique energy signature," Sandra continued. "When combined with starborn essence, it creates a perfect harmony, the key to unlocking the Nexus's full potential and to controlling its power." Jack and Zara watched in awe as the swirling energies coalesced into a perfect sphere, pulsing with life and possibility. "This is why you were chosen, Jack," Zara said softly, her eyes meeting his. "This is why we're bonded. Together, we're the bridge between two worlds, two forms of energy. We're the key to the Nexus." The weight of this revelation settled over them like a mantle. Jack felt a mix of fear and exhilaration coursing through him, echoed and amplified by Zara's own emotions through their bond. "But how do we control it?" Jack asked, his engineer's mind already racing with possibilities. "How do we use this power without, well, destroying reality?" Sandra's expression softened, a hint of pride in their alien features. That, young hares, is what your training is all about. Today, we begin the true work of preparing you for your destiny. With another gesture, the galactic map faded away, replaced by a strange, shimmering doorway. It pulsed with the same energy they had seen flowing through the Nexus. "This portal will take us to the heart of the Nexus itself," Sandra explained. "There, you will face your first true test. Are you ready?" Jack looked at Zara, feeling the strength of their bond flowing between them. He saw his own determination reflected in her silver eyes. "Together," Zara said, squeezing his hand. "Together," Jack echoed, nodding to Sandra. As one, they stepped through the portal. The world around them dissolved into pure energy, and Jack felt as if he were being unmade and remade with every passing moment. Colors he had no names for flashed before his eyes, and sensations he couldn't begin to describe coursed through his body. When reality reasserted itself, they found themselves in a vast chamber that seemed to exist outside of normal space and time. The walls, if they could be called that, pulsed with living energy. At the center of the chamber stood a pillar of pure light, so bright it should have been blinding, yet somehow easy to look at. "The heart of the Nexus," Sandra said, that a voice filled with reverence. "Few have ever seen this place. Fewer still have survived its trials." As if in response to Xandra's words, the pillar of light began to pulse more rapidly. Tendrils of energy reached out towards Jack and Zara, probing, testing. "What do we do?" Jack asked, fighting the urge to step back. "Open yourselves to it," Xandra instructed. "Let the Nexus see you, know you. But be careful. It will test you, challenge you. You must remain true to yourselves and to each other." Jack and Zara exchanged a glance, then nodded. Together, they stepped forward, allowing the tendrils of energy to envelop them. The moment the energy touched them, Jack felt as if he were being pulled in 1,000 directions at once. His mind expanded, touching the vastness of the universe. He saw worlds beyond imagination, civilizations rising and falling in the blink of an eye. The temptation to lose himself in this cosmic awareness was overwhelming. But through it all, he felt Zara's presence, an anchor in the storm of sensations. Their bond pulsed stronger than ever, a lifeline connecting them across the infinity of the Nexus. Suddenly, Jack found himself facing a series of choices, each more difficult than the last. He saw visions of Earth, of the problems plaguing his home world. With the power of the Nexus, he could solve them all with a thought. End poverty, cure diseases, reverse climate change. The temptation was almost overwhelming. But as he reached out to make these changes, he felt a warning pulse through his bond with Zara. He realized that such sweeping changes, no matter how well-intentioned, could have unforeseen consequences. The Nexus was testing him, seeing if he would abuse its power. With great effort, Jack pulled back, choosing instead to see these problems as challenges for humanity to solve on its own, with guidance rather than direct intervention. As he made this choice, he felt a surge of approval from the Nexus, and the visions shifted. Now he saw Zara, facing her own tests. Through their bond, he lent her his strength, his human perspective balancing her starborn instincts. Together, they navigated the labyrinth of choices and temptations the Nexus presented. Each decision strengthened their bond, their two minds working in perfect harmony to find the balance between action and restraint, between using the Nexus's power and respecting the natural order of the universe. After what felt like an eternity, the visions faded. Jack and Zara found themselves back in the heart chamber, breathless and exhilarated. The pillar of light before them pulsed with a warm, approving glow. "You have passed the first trial," Sandra said, their voice filled with pride and relief. "The Nexus has accepted you as its heirs." As if in response to Xandra's words, a small sphere of light detached itself from the central pillar, floating towards Jack and Zara. As it reached them, it split into two, each half merging with their chests. Jack gasped as he felt the power of the Nexus flowing through him, perfectly balanced by Zara's presence in their bond. He looked at her, seeing the same wonder and responsibility reflected in her eyes. "This is just the beginning," Zara said softly, taking his hand. "We have so much more to learn, so much more to do." Jack nodded, feeling both humbled and empowered by the experience. "Whatever comes next," he said, "we'll face it together." As they turned to leave the hot chamber, following Xandra back to the academy, Jack couldn't help but feel that they had taken the first step on a journey that would change not just their lives, but the fate of two civilizations and perhaps the entire galaxy. The true nature of their inheritance was beginning to reveal itself, and with it, the enormous responsibility they now carried. But as Jack felt the warmth of Zara's hand in his and the steady pulse of their bond, he knew that together, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Galactic threats emerge. The weeks following their first encounter with the heart of the Nexus were a blur of intense training and startling revelations for Jack and Zara. Each day brought new challenges as they learned to harness the power flowing through their bond, guided by Xandra and a rotating cast of starborn instructors. Jack found himself pushed to the limits of his human physiology and beyond, his hybrid nature allowing him to tap into abilities he never knew he possessed. Zara, too, was discovering new depths to her starborn heritage, their combined powers growing exponentially as their bond deepened. It was during one such training session, as they practiced manipulating the energy fields around Elysium Prime, that the first signs of trouble appeared. Jack and Zara stood on a floating platform high above the city, their hands clasped as they focused on creating a protective shield around a sector of the metropolis. Through their bond, Jack could feel the ebb and flow of Zara's power, perfectly complementing his own. Suddenly, a violent tremor shook the platform. Jack's eyes snapped open, his concentration broken. What was that? Zara's face was etched with concern. Something's wrong. The energy patterns are distorted. Before either of them could say more, Xandra materialized beside them, their usually calm demeanor replaced by urgent tension. "We must return to the academy immediately. We are under attack." As they raced back to the academy in a sleek transport vessel, Jack's mind reeled. Attack? By whom? I thought Elysium Prime was supposed to be impregnable. Xandra's expression was grim. It should be, but it seems our enemies have found a way to breach our defenses. Enemies? Zara echoed, her voice tight with worry. You never mentioned enemies before. We had hoped to spare you this burden until you were fully trained, Xandra replied. But it seems fate has other plans. There are factions in the galaxy who would seek to control the power of the Nexus for their own ends. We've kept them at bay for millennia, but now... The transport landed with a jolt in the Academy's main hangar. As they disembarked, Jack was struck by the scene of controlled chaos around them. Starborn of various ranks rushed about, their usual grace replaced by urgent purpose. A tall, regal Starborn approached them, his crystalline armor glinting in the emergency lights. High Counselor Zorax, Xandra greeted him with a respectful nod. What news? The Void Collective has breached our outer defenses, Zorax reported, his voice deep and resonant. They're using some kind of quantum tunneling technology we've never seen before. Our standard shields are useless against it. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. The Void Collective. Zara squeezed his hand, sending a wave of reassurance through their bond. A coalition of rogue scientists and power-hungry warlords, she explained quickly. They've been trying to unlock the secrets of the Nexus for centuries. And now they're here, Jack finished, the gravity of the situation sinking in. Zorax turned his attention to Jack and Zara, his alien eyes seeming to pierce right through them. You are the heirs we have been preparing for this moment, the future of not just Elysium Prime, but the entire galaxy may rest in your hands. Jack felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders like a physical force. He looked at Zara, seeing his own mix of fear and determination reflected in her eyes. Through their bond, he sent a pulse of strength, feeling her reciprocate. What do you need us to do? Jack asked, surprised by the steadiness in his voice. Sandra stepped forward. "The two of you possess a unique connection to the Nexus. If we can get you to the central spire, you might be able to reinforce our defenses in a way the Void Collective can't penetrate." "But we've barely scratched the surface of our training," Zara protested. "How can we possibly?" Her words were cut off by another violent tremor, this one strong enough to knock several Starborn off their feet. The lights flickered ominously. "We're out of time," Zorax declared. "You must go now. We'll buy you as much time as we can." With a gesture, he summoned a sleek, almost organic-looking vehicle. "This will take you to the central spire. May the wisdom of our ancestors guide you." As Jack and Zara boarded the vehicle, Sandra called out, "Remember your training. Trust in each other and in the bond you share. The power of the Nexus flows through you both." The vehicle's canopy sealed shut, and they were off, streaking through the chaotic streets of Elysium Prime. Jack took the controls, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to navigate the treacherous path with surprising skill. "Jack," Zara said softly, her hand on his arm. "I'm scared." He glanced at her, seeing the vulnerability behind her usually composed exterior. "Me too," he admitted. "But we're in this together, remember? Whatever happens, we face it as one." She nodded, a small smile touching her lips. Through their bond, Jack felt her fear recede, replaced by a steely determination that matched his own. As they neared the central spire, the true extent of the attack became clear. The sky was filled with sleek, dark ships that seemed to phase in and out of reality. Beams of corrupted energy lanced down from these ships, eating away at Elysium Prime's defenses. There, Zora pointed to a gap in the chaos, the spire's main entrance. Jack banked hard, pushing their vehicle to its limits. They shot through the gap in the defenses, the spire's entrance arising open just in time to admit them before slamming shut behind them. They found themselves in a vast, dimly lit chamber. At its center stood a pillar of pulsing energy, a smaller version of what they had seen in the heart of the Nexus. "Now what?" Jack asked, looking around for some kind of control panel or interface. Zara shook her head. "I don't think it works like that. Remember what Sandra said, we need to use our connection to the Nexus." Understanding dawned on Jack. He took Zora's hands in his, feeling the familiar surge of their bond activating. Together, they approached the pillar of energy. As they drew closer, tendrils of light reached out to them just as they had in the heart chamber. This time, however, Jack and Zara were prepared. They opened themselves to the energy, allowing it to flow through them and amplify their bond. Jack gasped as his consciousness expanded. He could feel the entire defensive network of Elysium Prime, could see the weak points where the Void Collective's strange weapons were breaking through. "Zara," he called out, his voice sounding distant to his own ears. "Can you see it?" "Yes," she replied, her voice equally ethereal. "We need to reshape the defenses, make them adaptive." Together, they began to work, their minds moving in perfect synchronicity. They took the rigid, predictable patterns of Elysium Prime's defenses and infused them with the chaotic, ever-changing energy of their human Starborn bond. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The shield around Elysium Prime flickered, then flared to life with renewed vigor. The Void Collective's weapons, which had been slicing through the defenses like they weren't there, now bounced harmlessly off the reconfigured shield. Through their expanded awareness, Jack and Zara could sense the confusion and frustration of their attackers. The Void Collective's ships began to retreat, their quantum tunneling technology rendered useless by the new adaptive defense grid. As the immediate threat receded, Jack and Zara gently disconnected from the Nexus, their consciousness returning to their bodies. They stumbled, exhausted from the immense effort, but elated at their success. "We did it," Jack breathed, pulling Zara into a tight embrace. "We actually did it." Zara laughed, a sound of pure joy and relief. "We did. Oh, Jack, can you believe it? We saved Elysium Prime." Their moment of celebration was interrupted by the arrival of Sandra and Zorax, both looking relieved but cautious. "You have done well, young hares," Zorax said, his voice filled with pride. "You have proven yourselves worthy of the legacy you carry." Sandra, however, looked troubled. "The Void Collective has been driven back, but this is only the beginning. They will return, and they are not our only enemy." Jack felt a sinking feeling in his stomach. "What do you mean?" Sandra's gaze was grave as it moved between Jack and Zara. "Word of your existence, of a human starborn hybrid with the power to control the Nexus, will spread quickly. There are forces in the galaxy that will stop at nothing to possess that power." "So what do we do?" Zara asked, her hand finding Jack's and squeezing tight. Zorax stepped forward, his expression solemn. "We must accelerate your training. You have shown great potential, but there is still much for you to learn, and we must prepare for the battles to come." As the gravity of their situation settled over them, Jack and Zara exchanged a look. Through their bond, they shared a wordless conversation, reaffirming their commitment to each other and to the responsibility they now carried. "We're ready," Jack said, speaking for both of them. "Whatever it takes, we'll face it together." As they left the central spire, stepping out into the aftermath of the battle, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a much larger conflict. The galaxy was changing, and he and Zara were at the heart of that change. But as he felt the steady pulse of their bond and saw the determination in Zara's eyes, Jack knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as one. Human and starborn, bound together by fate and choice, ready to shape the destiny of two civilizations and perhaps the entire galaxy. The real test of their powers and their bond was just beginning. Embracing the legacy. The months following the Void Collective's attack on Elysium Prime were a whirlwind of intense training and rapid evolution for Jack and Zara. The threat of further attacks loomed over them, driving them to push the boundaries of their abilities every day. Under the watchful eyes of Sandra and a cadre of starborn masters, Jack and Zara delved deeper into the mysteries of the Nexus. They learned to manipulate reality on a quantum level, to fold space and time, and to channel energies that defied the laws of physics as Jack had known them on Earth. But it wasn't just their powers that were growing. Their bond, too, was evolving, becoming something more profound and intricate than either of them had imagined possible. One morning, as they prepared for another grueling training session, Jack caught Zara staring at him with an unreadable expression. "What is it?" he asked, feeling a flutter of concern through their bond. Zara smiled softly. "I was just thinking about how much you've changed. How much we've both changed." Jack nodded, understanding her meaning. He hardly recognized himself anymore. His body had become leaner, stronger, vibrating with the energy of the Nexus that now flowed constantly through him. And his mind, it had expanded in ways he couldn't have imagined, able to perceive and manipulate the very fabric of reality. "Sometimes I wonder," he said quietly, "if I'm still human at all." Zara reached out, taking his hand in hers. Through their touch, Jack felt a surge of warmth and reassurance. "You are," she said firmly. "That's what makes you special, Jack. You're a bridge between two worlds, just as I am. It's why we're stronger together than apart." Before Jack could respond, an alarm blared through the academy. They'd exchanged a quick glance before rushing to the central command center. They found Sandra and Zorax hunched over a holographic display, their faces grim. The display showed a sector of space near the outer rim of the galaxy, where a swirling vortex of dark energy was forming. "What is that?" Jack asked, a sense of foreboding settling in his gut. Zorax looked up, his crystalline features set in a mask of concern. "It's a void storm. The collective is growing bolder, more desperate. They're attempting to tear open a rift in space-time. If they succeed," Sandra added, "they could gain direct access to the raw power of the Nexus. The consequences would be catastrophic." Zara stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the swirling vortex. "We have to stop them." Zorax nodded sullenly. "Yes, but it won't be easy. The void storm is too far for our ships to reach in time. There's only one way. Jack met Zara's gaze, understanding dawning between them. We have to use the Nexus, he said. Transport ourselves there directly. Sandra's feather-like crest rippled with concern. It's incredibly dangerous. You've never attempted a jump of this magnitude before. If something goes wrong... We don't have a choice, Zara said firmly. We're the only ones who can stop this. Jack squeezed her hand, sending a pulse of determination through their bond. We can do this, together. Andra and Zorax exchanged a look, then nodded. Very well, Zorax said. We'll monitor you from here and provide what support we can. May the wisdom of our ancestors guide you. Jack and Zara made their way to the heart chamber of the Nexus, the place where they had first truly connected to its power. As they approached the central pillar of energy, Jack felt a mix of excitement and trepidation coursing through him. Ready? He asked Zara, though he could feel her answer through their bond before she spoke. Always, she replied with a smile that was equal parts confidence and affection. They clasped hands and stepped into the pillar of light. Immediately, Jack felt his consciousness expanding, merging with Zara's and with a vast network of energy that was the Nexus. In this state, the entire galaxy was laid out before them like a shimmering tapestry of light and possibility. Together, they focused on their destination, the void storm at the edge of the galaxy. Jack felt a moment of vertigo as reality seemed to twist and fold around them. Then, with a flash of light and a sensation like being turned inside out, they were there. They materialized in the midst of chaos. The void storm raged around them, a maelstrom of dark energy that threatened to tear apart the very fabric of space. In the eye of the storm, a massive ship pulsed with corrupted Nexus energy, the Void Collective's mobile base of operations. Jack, look. Zara's mental voice cut through the chaos. She pointed to a series of energy conduits leading from the ship into the heart of the storm. They're using those to channel the void energy. If we can disrupt them... Jack nodded, understanding her plan. It'll destabilize the whole operation. Let's do it. Working in perfect synchronicity, Jack and Zara began to weave their way through the storm. They used their connection to the Nexus to create bubbles of stable space around them, shielding themselves from the worst of the void energy. As they approached the first conduit, alarms blared from the Collective's ship. Swarms of drone fighters poured out, their weapons charged with the same dark energy that powered the storm. I'll handle the fighters, Jack called out. You focus on the conduits. Zara nodded, her form shimmering with Nexus energy as she sped towards the nearest energy stream. Jack turned his attention to the approaching swarm, drawing on the full power of his human starborn hybrid nature. He moved with impossible speed, weaving between plasma bolts and energy beams. With gestures that defied normal physics, he redirected the void energy from the fighters' weapons, turning them against each other. Explosions blossomed in the chaos of the storm as fighter after fighter fell to Jack's manipulations. Meanwhile, Zara had reached the first conduit. Her hands glowed with pure Nexus energy as she began to unravel the complex web of void technology. Jack felt her exertion through their bond and sent her a surge of strength and encouragement. Suddenly, a massive beam of dark energy lanced out from the Collective's ship, heading straight for Zara. Without thinking, Jack teleported to her side, throwing up a shield of Nexus energy just in time to deflect the attack. The effort left him gasping, his vision blurring at the edges. That was too close, he panted. Zara's eyes widened with concern. Jack, you're pushing yourself too hard. We need tow. Her words were cut off as the ship fired again, this time with a weapon that seemed to distort space itself. The attack bypassed their shields entirely, catching them both in a field of warped reality. Jack felt like he was being torn apart at the molecular level. Through their bond, he could feel Zara's agony matching his own. But in that moment of shared pain, something remarkable happened. Their consciousnesses, already linked by their bond and their connection to the Nexus, began to merge completely. Jack felt his sense of self dissolving, blending with Zara's until it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. In this new unified state, they found a wellspring of power beyond anything they had experienced before. They were no longer just Jack and Zara, human and starborn. They were something new, a perfect synthesis of both races, amplified by the full power of the Nexus. With a thought, they shattered the Void Collective's reality walking field. With a gesture, they unraveled all of the energy conduits at once, their combined consciousness able to perceive and manipulate the complex energy patterns with ease. The Void Storm began to collapse in on itself as its power source was cut off. The Collective's ship, suddenly vulnerable, tried to retreat, but Jack Zara were not about to let them escape. Drawing on their newfound power, they reached out and seized the massive vessel with tendrils of pure Nexus energy. The ship's hull groaned under the strain as they began to compress it, collapsing its void-based technology and rendering it inert. As the last of the Void Storm dissipated, Jack and Zara slowly separated, their individual consciousnesses reforming. They found themselves floating in open space, surrounded by the debris of the Collective's failed operation. "Did we really just do that?" Jack asked, his voice filled with awe. Zara nodded, her eyes wide with wonder. "We did. Jack, do you realize what this means? We've unlocked a whole new level of our potential, the true power of our bond." Before she could finish, a flash of light announced the arrival of a starborn rescue ship. As they were brought aboard, Jack and Zara were met with looks of astonishment and reverence from the crew. The journey back to Elysium Prime was a blur of medical checks and debriefings. By the time they finally had a moment alone, Jack felt like he had lived a lifetime since that morning's training session. As they stood on a balcony overlooking the glittering spires of the starborn capital, Zara turned to Jack, her expression serious. "Everything's going to change now, isn't it?" Jack nodded, feeling the weight of their achievements settling on his shoulders. "Yeah, I think it is. The Void Collective isn't going to stop coming for us. And now that we've shown what we're capable of, everyone will be watching us," Zara finished. "Afraid of us, maybe, or wanting to use our power for themselves." Jack reached out, taking her hand in his. Through their touch, he felt the echo of that perfect unity they had experienced during the battle. "Whatever comes next," he said softly, "we'll face it together, just like we always have." Zara smiled, squeezing his hand. "Together," she agreed. As they looked out over the city, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. They had embraced their legacy, unlocked powers beyond imagination. But with that power came greater responsibility, greater dangers. The galaxy was changing, and they were at the heart of that change. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Jack knew that as long as he and Zara stood united, there was hope, not just for them, but for all of humanity and the starborn alike. The true test of their powers, their bond, and their love was just beginning. Humanity's stand. The aftermath of Jack and Zara's victory over the Void Collective sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. News of their incredible feat spread rapidly, igniting both hope and fear across countless worlds. For some, they were saviors, a new generation of guardians with the power to protect the galaxy from threats beyond imagination. For others, they were a threat, an unpredictable force that could upset the delicate balance of power that had existed for millennia. In the months that followed, Jack and Zara found themselves at the center of a galactic political storm. Representatives from various factions and species arrived on Elysium Prime daily, some seeking alliances, others making thinly veiled threats. Through it all, the young couple stood firm, guided by their unwavering bond and their commitment to using their powers for the greater good. But as the galactic community's attention focused on Elysium Prime, a shadow was growing on the fringes of known space. The remnants of the Void Collective, though scattered and weakened, had not given up their ambitions. In the darkness between stars, they were gathering allies, amassing a force that threatened to plunge the entire galaxy into chaos. It was on a quiet evening, As Jack and Zara were enjoying a rare moment of peace in the gardens of the academy, that the warning came. Sandra appeared before them, their usually serene features twisted with concern. "We've received a transmission," the alien said without preamble. "The Void Collective has allied itself with the Scourge Dominion and the Zarkan Imperium. They're amassing a fleet unlike anything we've ever seen." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. The Scourge Dominion was a race of techno-organic beings known for their ruthless efficiency in stripping worlds of resources. The Zarkan Imperium, on the other hand, was an ancient empire that had long sought to subjugate lesser species. Together with the Void Collective, they formed a triumvirate of terror that could threaten the entire galaxy. "What are they after?" Zara asked, though Jack could feel through their bond that she already suspected the answer. Sandra's gaze was grim. "You, or more specifically, the power you represent. They believe that if they can capture you, they can harness the full power of the Nexus for themselves." Jack stood, his jaw set with determination. "Then we'll face them. We've beaten them before, we can do it again." But Sandra shook their head. "It's not that simple. The combined fleet is too vast for even your powers to overcome directly. And they're not just targeting Elysium Prime. They're launching simultaneous attacks on key worlds throughout the galaxy, including Earth," Jack finished, feeling a surge of panic. "They're going after Earth to get to us." Zara stood beside him, her hand finding his. Through their touch, Jack felt her unwavering support and a shared resolve. "Then we'll have to split up," she said softly. "I'll coordinate the defense of Elysium Prime and our allies. You need to go to Earth." The thought of separating from Zara, even temporarily, filled Jack with dread. Their bond had become so integral to who they were, to their power. But he knew she was right. Earth, his home, his people, needed him. "How soon can we leave?" Jack asked, turning to Xandra. Immediately, the alien replied, "We've prepared a ship for you, equipped with our latest stealth technology. It should get you to Earth undetected." As Jack prepared to depart, he and Zara shared a moment alone. Words seemed inadequate in the face of what they were about to face, but through their bond, they communicated everything they needed to. "Be safe," Zara whispered, pulling Jack into a tight embrace. "Remember, no matter how far apart we are, our bond connects us. Draw on it if you need strength." Jack nodded, pressing his forehead to hers. "I love you," he said simply. "We'll see this through together even when we're apart." With a final kiss, they parted. As Jack's ship streaked away from Elysium Prime, he felt the distance between them like a physical ache. But underneath that pain was a core of unshakable strength, the knowledge that no matter what challenges lay ahead, their bond would endure. The journey to Earth was tense, filled with near misses as Jack's ship skirted the edges of enemy patrols. When he finally broke through Earth's atmosphere, his heart sank. The planet of his birth was already under attack, massive ships hanging ominously in the sky above major cities. Using his connection to the Nexus, Jack reached out to the leaders of Earth's defense forces, coordinating his arrival. He landed in the heart of a military base outside of Washington, D.C., emerging from his ship to find a group of awestruck soldiers and officials waiting for him. Mr. Harris, a stern-looking general, stepped forward. "I'm General Chen. We've been briefed on your unique situation. I hope you're everything they say you are, because we're in one hell of a fight." Jack nodded grimly. "I'll do everything in my power to protect Earth, sir. But I need you to understand, this isn't just about our planet. The entire galaxy is at stake." As Jack worked with Earth's military to coordinate their defense, he couldn't help but marvel at how far humanity had come. Despite being faced with technology far beyond their own, the people of Earth were fighting back with everything they had, showing the same spirit and determination that had first caught the attention of the Starborn. Through it all, Jack could feel Zara's presence in the back of his mind, a constant source of strength and comfort. He knew she was facing her own battles light years away, but their bond remained unbroken. The turning point came 3 days into the battle for Earth. Jack had just finished repelling an attack on New York City, using his powers to redirect the energy of the enemy's weapons back at them, when he felt a surge of alarm through his bond with Zara. In that moment of connection, he saw through her eyes a massive Void Collective ship, larger than any they had encountered before, emerging from hyperspace near Elysium Prime. He felt Zara's determination, her plan to confront the threat head-on, and her fear that it might not be enough. Without hesitation, Jack reached out through their bond, offering his strength. Across the vast distances of space, he felt Zara accept, their consciousnesses merging just as they had during the battle with the Void Storm. In that state of perfect unity, they faced the threats to both Earth and Elysium Prime simultaneously. On Earth, Jack's body glowed with otherworldly energy as he single-handedly turned the tide of battle, dismantling enemy ships with a thought and erecting impenetrable shields around population centers. At the same time, through Zara, he confronted the Void Collective's flagship above Elysium Prime. Together, they wove a tapestry of Nexus energy so complex and powerful that it overwhelmed the ship's defenses, unraveling its very atomic structure. The effort was monumental, pushing both of them to the very limits of their abilities. But as the Void Collective flagship disintegrated and the enemy forces above Earth began a hasty retreat, Jack and Zara knew they had achieved the impossible. As their consciousnesses separated once more, Jack found himself kneeling on the scorched earth of what had been a battlefield moments before. Around him, soldiers and civilians alike stared in awe and not a little fear. General Chen approached cautiously. "Mr. Harris, is it over?" Jack stood slowly, his entire body aching from the immense energy he had channeled. "The immediate threat is over," he said, "but this was just the beginning. Earth needs to be ready. We're part of something much bigger now." In the days that followed, as the dust settled and the full scope of what had happened began to sink in, Jack found himself in the unprecedented position of serving as a bridge between Earth and the wider galactic community. With the threat of the Void Collective and their allies neutralized, other races that had been watching from the sidelines now came forward, offering alliances and technological exchanges. Earth, led by Jack, took its first tentative steps onto the galactic stage. A month after the battle, as Jack stood before the United Nations explaining the intricacies of galactic politics, a familiar presence brushed against his mind. He looked up to see Zara entering the chamber, her alien beauty causing a stir among the assembled leaders. As she reached his side, taking his hand in hers, Jack felt a sense of completion. Together, they faced the representatives of Earth, ready to guide humanity into a new era of galactic citizenship. "People of Earth," Zara began, her voice carrying easily through the chamber. "You have proven yourselves worthy of joining the galactic community. Your bravery, your resourcefulness, your unwavering spirit in the face of overwhelming odds. These are the qualities that will serve you well in the adventures to come." Jack squeezed her hand, then addressed the assembly. "We stand at a crossroads. The path ahead won't be easy. There will be challenges we can't even imagine yet. But I promise you this, whatever comes, Earth will not face it alone. We are part of something greater now, a tapestry of civilizations stretching across the stars." As Jack looked out over the sea of faces, human faces filled with a mix of hope and trepidation, he felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. But it was a weight he was ready to bear, with Zara by his side and the strength of 2 civilizations behind them. The threat of the Void Collective had been neutralized, but Jack knew that other challenges would arise. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but also dangers. Yet as he stood there, hand in hand with Zara, the bond between them humming with power and promise, Jack felt ready to face whatever the future might hold. They were no longer just Jack and Zara, no longer merely human and starborn. They were something new, a bridge between worlds, guardians of a legacy that spanned the cosmos. And together, they would shape the destiny of not just 2 civilizations, but an entire galaxy. As the assembly hall erupted in applause, Jack and Zara shared a private smile. Their journey had only just begun, but with their love, their bond, and their unwavering commitment to using their powers for good, they were ready to write the next chapter in the grand story of the universe. The future, with all its infinite possibilities, awaited.